Lieutenant Jack Hayes squinted at the radar screen. Something wasn't right. The blip that appeared at the edge of Saturn's orbit didn't match any known spacecraft signature. After 12 years in the United Space Force, he knew every vessel pattern by heart. "Sir, we have an unidentified object at coordinates 227 to 583, he reported to Commander Ellis. Ellis frowned and moved beside Hayes. "Natural object." "Negative. Sir, it's changing course." Deliberately. The atmosphere on the bridge of the UNS Vigilant grew tense. First contact with an alien civilization had been theorized for decades, but no one truly expected it to happen during their lifetime. "Full sensor sweep, and notify Earth Command immediately," Ellis ordered. Within hours, the UN Security Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered in New York as scientists confirmed the impossible. An alien vessel had entered our solar system. "The craft appears to be observing us," General Kate Rodriguez explained to the hushed chamber. "It's maintaining position just beyond lunar orbit. No hostile movements detected so far." President Alan Foster stood at the podium, his face grave. "Humanity stands at a crossroads. How we respond in these next hours may determine the future of our species." The decision was made to broadcast a welcome message on all frequencies, a simple greeting of peace in multiple languages accompanied by mathematical formulas to demonstrate intelligence. 3 days later, they received a response. The alien vessel, now joined by 3 larger ships, transmitted images and sounds that Earth's supercomputers quickly decoded into comprehensible language. "We are the Galactic Conclave, a union of 7 spacefaring civilizations. We come in peace to welcome Earth to the interstellar community." When the alien delegation requested a meeting, a heavily guarded airfield in neutral Switzerland was chosen as the site. Military forces from 12 nations surrounded the area while scientists, diplomats, and world leaders waited anxiously. The ship that landed was elegant and silent, its metallic surface reflecting the mountain landscape like a perfect mirror. When the hatch opened, humans got their first glimpse of alien life. Ambassador Zorthal of the Vexeri species stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms. Behind him stood representatives from 6 other species, each more alien than the last. "Your species has progressed remarkably quickly," Zorthal said through a translation device. "Most civilizations take twice as long to develop spaceflight after discovering electricity." President Foster extended his hand in Earth's traditional greeting. After a moment's hesitation, Zorthal mimicked the gesture with his upper right arm. "We welcome you to Earth, and hope this marks the beginning of friendship between our worlds," Foster said. The initial meetings went smoothly, with the aliens sharing information about the Conclave, a 3,000-year-old alliance of advanced civilizations that governed most of the Milky Way. Earth was offered observer status, with potential for full membership in the future. But Lieutenant Hayes, who had been selected to join the security detail, noticed something troubling. Whenever human military capabilities were discussed, the aliens exchanged glances that seemed almost amused. During a demonstration of Earth's defense systems, Hayes overheard 2 alien representatives speaking to each other. "They still use projectile weapons," one said. "Fascinating that they've survived this long." "Primitive, but charming," the other replied. The council was right to classify them as Level 2. Hayes didn't know what Level 2 meant, but the dismissive tone was clear. These advanced beings viewed humanity as primitive, barely worth serious consideration. As diplomatic relations were formalized, a sense of wonder spread across Earth. News outlets celebrated humanity's entry onto the galactic stage. But behind closed doors, military leaders worried about the vast technological gap that had been revealed. "They're at least 5 centuries ahead of us," General Rodriguez told her staff. "Maybe more." What no one yet realized was that humanity possessed one unexpected advantage, one that the Galactic Conclave would soon learn to fear. 6 months after first contact, Earth received an official invitation from the Galactic Conclave. The message arrived at the newly established Alien Relations Department in Geneva. They want representatives to visit their central station, explained Dr. Richard Cooper, head of Alien Communications. This is unprecedented. No species has been invited so quickly after initial contact. The UN Secretary-General called an emergency meeting. World leaders debated who should represent humanity in this historic mission. After weeks of discussion, Captain Olivia Martinez was selected to lead the diplomatic team. At 38, she had impressive credentials. Former Navy SEAL, doctorate in international relations, and fluent in 4 languages. Her calm demeanor and quick thinking made her the perfect choice for humanity's ambassador. "I understand the responsibility I'm taking on," Martinez said during the press conference. "I will represent not just one nation, but all people of Earth." The security detail would be led by Major Sam Wilson, a decorated Army Ranger with combat experience on 3 continents. His team of 6 elite soldiers would carry standard-issue firearms, a decision that caused debate among mission planners. "The Conclave hasn't authorized weapons," warned one diplomat. "Standard protocol for protecting diplomatic personnel," countered General Rodriguez. "We're not sending our people defenseless into unknown territory." The ship assigned for the journey was the UNS Endeavour, Earth's newest spacecraft. Though impressive by human standards, everyone knew it would appear primitive compared to alien vessels. On launch day, millions watched as the Endeavour departed Earth orbit. Martinez stood at the viewing port, watching her home planet shrink to a blue marble. "Beautiful, isn't it?" asked Major Wilson, joining her. "Makes you realize how small our conflicts are," she replied. The journey to the Conclave station would take 3 weeks, even with the alien navigation system they'd been provided. During this time, Martinez and her team studied everything known about the 7 species of the Conclave. The Vexari were the apparent leaders, a highly advanced race with technology centuries beyond Earth's. The Krell specialized in biological sciences. The Tellarites were master engineers. The Thkor had the largest military force. The Nyx were mysterious psychics. The Garidians were traders. The Quarians were the record keepers and historians. 2 weeks into their journey, they encountered their first alien patrol ship. The massive vessel dwarfed the Endeavour, scanning them briefly before moving on. "Did you see their weapon systems?" Wilson asked the ship's pilot. "Makes our missiles look like firecrackers." As they approached the Conclave station, the true scale of the technological gap became clear. The station itself was larger than Earth's moon, a spinning artificial world housing millions of beings from across the galaxy. The Endeavour docked in a bay filled with sleek vessels that made the human ship look like an ancient sailing boat beside modern yachts. An honor guard of Vexari met them at the airlock. Martinez noticed they carried no visible weapons, though she suspected they had something more advanced than guns. "Welcome to Concordia Station," said their guide, a tall Vexari named Selmak. "The High Council awaits your arrival." As the human delegation followed their escort, they passed through security scanners. When the aliens discovered the humans' firearms, there was immediate concern. "You brought projectile weapons?" Selmak asked, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in what they'd learned was surprise. "Standard security for diplomatic protection," Wilson explained. The aliens exchanged glances that Martinez recognized, a mixture of amusement and concern, as if children had brought toys to an adult gathering. "You may keep them," Selmak finally said, "though I assure you they are unnecessary here, and—" he hesitated, somewhat obsolete. As they continued through the massive station, Martinez observed the other species. Most carried devices that appeared to be energy weapons, sleek, lightweight, with no visible ammunition. "They think our guns are jokes," Wilson whispered to Martinez. "Let them think that," she replied quietly. "Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage." The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Conclave stretched higher than Earth's tallest skyscrapers. 7 massive thrones, each designed for the different physiologies of the founding species, formed a semicircle on an elevated platform. Below them, thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in tiered seating. Captain Martinez led her team into this intimidating space, conscious of every eye upon them. The humans looked small and primitive compared to the colorful array of advanced beings surrounding them. "Representatives of Earth," announced a booming voice, "you stand before the High Council of the Galactic Conclave, rulers of 3 spiral arms and protectors of civilized space for 12,000 cycles." High Counselor Dravnex of the Thkor rose from his throne. Standing nearly 9 feet tall with armored skin that glinted like polished obsidian, he dominated the chamber. 4 yellow eyes studied the humans with clear disdain. "We have reviewed your species' history," Dravnex stated. "You have potential, despite your violent tendencies." Martinez stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we thank you for this opportunity to join the galactic community. We have much to learn, but also contributions to offer." Indeed. Dravnex's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "Please, share these contributions." For the next hour, Martinez presented human achievements in art, music, literature, and science. The council seemed moderately impressed by Earth's cultural offerings, but grew restless when she discussed technology. "And what of your defensive capabilities?" asked a Krell council member. "How does Earth protect itself?" This was the moment Major Wilson had prepared for. He stepped forward with his team. "With permission, we would demonstrate standard Earth military equipment." After receiving a nod from Martinez, Wilson laid out several weapons on the presentation table: a pistol, assault rifle, sniper rifle, and combat knife. "Our primary defense tools are kinetic weapons," Wilson explained, holding up the rifle. "They use controlled explosions to project metal projectiles at high velocity." A murmur ran through the chamber, not of awe, but amusement. "You propel solid objects?" asked the Vexari counselor, her 4 arms gesturing in disbelief. "With chemical explosions?" Wilson nodded. "Yes, counselor. These have been effective for centuries on Earth." The laughter began softly, then spread across the chamber like a wave. Even the usually stoic Quarian representatives were shaking with mirth. Only Martinez and her team remained composed, though their faces flushed with embarrassment. Dravnex made no attempt to hide his amusement. "Forgive us, Earth representatives. It has been many generations since we've seen a species at your stage of development." He activated a hovering sphere that projected an image of a sleek handheld device. "This is a standard conclave defensive tool. It projects focused energy that disrupts molecular bonds. No ammunition required, no primitive explosions, and effective against any target." Martinez maintained her diplomatic poise. "We would be interested in learning more about such technology." "In time, perhaps," Dravnex replied dismissively. "Your species must first prove its maturity." The Garidian counselor leaned forward. "Do your people still fight wars over resources and territory?" "Our history has been marked by conflict," Martinez admitted, "but we're working toward lasting peace." "Yet you bring weapons to a diplomatic meeting," observed the Nyx representative, her voice like whispered silk. Wilson stiffened. "For protection only, counselor." "Protection?" Dravnex laughed again. "With those, you might as well throw stones." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Wilson's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. "The human delegation is barely beyond throwing spears," Dravnex announced to the assembly. "They shall be classified as a Level 2 civilization, promising, but requiring guidance." As the meeting concluded, Martinez led her team out with dignity, despite the continuing chuckles and stares. "That went well," muttered Lieutenant Ryan Peters, one of Wilson's security team. "They think we're jokes," Wilson said quietly. Martinez glanced back at the council. "Let them laugh. Never reveal your true strength until you need it." What none of the humans noticed was the silent observer in the shadows, a military advisor to the Tellarite delegation who watched them with calculating eyes rather than amusement. Captain Martinez couldn't sleep. The strange shadows cast by Concordia Station's artificial lighting made her quarters feel alien and unwelcoming. 3 weeks had passed since their humiliating presentation to the Conclave, and the human delegation had been given limited access to the station while cultural exchange protocols were established. She was reviewing files on her tablet when a soft knock came at her door. Major Wilson stood outside, his expression grim. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Private channel." Once inside, Wilson activated a signal jammer they'd brought from Earth. "Something's not right. Peters and I were in the lower markets today when we spotted a group of Corps in a restricted area. They were loading weapons onto transport ships. The Corps handle security for the Conclave," Martinez reminded him. "These weren't security weapons. These were planet crackers, Captain. Orbital bombardment systems." Martinez set down her tablet. "You're sure?" Peters recognized them from the military tech briefings we were given. "And that's not all." Wilson pulled out a small device and played a recording. The alien language was unfamiliar, but subtitles appeared on the screen. A translation captured by their AI system. "Earth defenses will fall within days. Their weapons are primitive. Once we control their resource-rich world, the Council will have to acknowledge our dominance." Martinez felt cold. "Where did you get this?" "The Tellerit military advisor, Kren, gave it to me secretly. Said not all Conclave members agree with what's happening. We need to alert Earth immediately." Wilson shook his head. "Our communications have been monitored since we arrived. We need to get back to the Endeavor first. The Council meets tomorrow. I'll confront them directly," Martinez decided. "That might tip our hand too early," Wilson warned. "If there's any chance of resolving this diplomatically, we have to try." The next morning, Martinez requested an emergency audience with the Council. Only 3 counselors attended: the Vexari, the Nix, and a junior Quarian representative. "Counselors, we have evidence that the Corps are planning an attack on Earth," Martinez stated firmly. The Vexari counselors' 4 eyes blinked slowly. "That is a serious accusation, Captain. We have recordings." "Likely misunderstood," interrupted the Nix. "Your translation systems are primitive." "Why would the Corps attack a Level 2 world?" asked the Quarian. "There would be no challenge or honor in such a conquest." "Perhaps for Earth's resources," Martinez suggested. The counselors exchanged glances. "We will investigate your concerns," the Vexori promised. "In the meantime, please remain in your assigned quarters." Martinez knew immediately they weren't being taken seriously. As they left the chamber, she whispered to Wilson, "Prepare for immediate departure. Get everyone to the ship quietly." That evening, as the human delegation gathered for their official dinner reception, Martinez noticed several Corps guards entering the hall. They positioned themselves at every exit. "Something's wrong," Wilson muttered. Before Martinez could respond, the lights dimmed. 8th Corps commander stepped forward. "By order of High Counselor Dravnex, the Earth delegation is to be detained for questioning regarding espionage against the Conclave." Wilson's hand moved to his sidearm. "Captain." Martinez assessed their options quickly. 6 guards against her team of 8. 2 exits. 30 civilians in the room. "Diplomatic immunity protects us," she announced loudly. "We reject these false accusations." The Corps commander laughed. "Immunity applies to civilized worlds, not primitive ones." Without warning, he raised his energy weapon and fired at Martinez. Wilson shoved her aside, drawing his pistol in one smooth motion. The crack of gunfire echoed through the hall, a sound not heard in the Conclave for generations. The Corps commander looked down in shock at the red stains spreading across his chest. His energy shield had failed to stop the simple metal bullet. "Impossible," he gasped before collapsing. For a moment, everyone froze in stunned silence. Then chaos erupted. "Get to the ship," Wilson shouted, firing again as the remaining Corps raised their weapons. Martinez grabbed her communicator. "All personnel, emergency evacuation protocol." Return to Endeavor immediately. As energy beams sliced through the air around them, the human security team formed a protective circle. Their primitive bullets cut through the core's energy shields like they didn't exist, creating a path through the shocked alien guards. For the first time, the Galactic Conclave witnessed what human weapons could really do. Alarms screamed throughout Concordia Station as Captain Martinez and her team raced through the corridors. Red emergency lights bathed everything in an eerie glow, making the alien architecture seem even more menacing. "This way," Wilson shouted, checking the small holographic map they'd been given upon arrival. Docking bay is 2 levels down. Behind them, the heavy footsteps of core security forces echoed off the walls. Energy weapons discharge, leaving scorch marks on the walls inches from their heads. Peters, Gomes, covering fire. Wilson ordered. The 2 soldiers dropped to one knee, turned, and fired their rifles. The sharp crack of gunfire reverberated through the station corridors, a sound that hadn't been heard in conclave space for millennia. The core pursuers, expecting energy weapons, had deployed their standard energy shields. To their shock, the primitive metal projectiles passed straight through these defenses, striking 3 guards. The aliens fell back in confusion and surprise. "Their shields don't stop bullets," Peters called out. "They're calibrated for energy weapons, not physical objects," Martinez realized. "Keep moving." Lieutenant Laura Bennett, the team's sniper specialist, took position at a junction ahead. Her rifle cracked once, twice, 3 times. Each shot found its mark with deadly precision. "How are they hitting us?" 8th Corps commander shouted, audible in the momentary silence. "Their weapons have no targeting systems." Martinez almost laughed despite the danger. What the aliens had mocked as primitive was now their greatest advantage. The team reached a large atrium filled with civilian aliens from dozens of species. Panic spread as the armed humans entered, followed by the sounds of pursuit. "We don't want to harm civilians," Martinez called to her team. "Weapons tight unless directly threatened." They weaved through the crowd, trying to reach the transportation hub that would take them to the lower levels. Suddenly, the main view screens around the atrium changed to show High Counselor Dravnik's. "Attention all personnel. Human delegates have assassinated conclave officials and are attempting to escape. They are to be captured or neutralized immediately. Their primitive weapons can penetrate standard shields. Adjust defenses accordingly." "So much for the element of surprise," Wilson muttered. As they reached the transport pods, a new group of security forces appeared, these wearing heavier armor and carrying larger weapons. "Elite guards," warned Kren, the Tellarite who had secretly joined their escape. "They will have modified their shields." Bennett took aim and fired. This time, her bullet bounced off an invisible barrier around the lead guard. "Adjusted already," she said grimly. Wilson pulled out his combat knife. "Let's see if they adjusted for everything." He hurled the blade with precision. It spun through the air and buried itself in the guard's neck joint where the armor was thinnest. The alien fell, purple blood pooling beneath him. "Into the transport," Martinez ordered. The team piled into the floating pod. Kren activated the controls, and they dropped rapidly through the station's central shaft toward the docking levels. "Endeavor, do you copy?" Martinez called into her communicator. "This is Captain Martinez. Prepare for emergency departure." The ship's pilot responded through static. "Captain, they've locked down all docking clamps. We can't disengage. Can you power up the engines?" "Yes, but we'll tear the ship apart if we try to leave while clamped." Martinez looked at Kren. "Is there a manual override?" The Tellarite nodded. "In the control room adjacent to your docking bay, but it will be heavily guarded now." The transport pod reached the docking level and slowed to a stop. When the doors opened, they found themselves facing a dozen armed guards. "Surrender now," demanded their leader. Wilson answered with his rifle. The humans scattered for cover as the firefight began. Unlike the previous encounters, these guards had adapted, using physical barriers along with their energy shields. "We need a distraction," Martine said, checking her ammunition. She had only one clip left. Kren pulled a small device from his pocket. "This might help. It's a pulse disruptor. Will interfere with their communications and targeting systems." "How long will it last?" "Perhaps 30 seconds. Martinez nodded. "On my mark, everyone make for the control room. Kren, lead the way. Bennett, Wilson, cover our rear." She took a deep breath, then nodded to Kren. "Now." The Tellarite activated the device. A wave of energy pulsed outward, causing the guards' weapons and shields to flicker momentarily. The humans burst from cover, firing as they ran. 30 seconds to reach the UNS Endeavour and their only hope of warning Earth. The UNS Endeavour burst out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, its hull scarred by energy weapon impacts. Inside the bridge, emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across the exhausted faces of the crew. Red warning lights flashed on nearly every console. "Damage report," Captain Martinez ordered, wiping blood from a cut above her eye. Lieutenant Clark checked his screen. Life support at 60%. Engines at 47%. Communications damaged, but functional. "Any pursuit?" Major Wilson studied the rear scanners. "Nothing yet, but they won't be far behind." Their escape from Concordia Station had been narrow. With Kren's help, they had reached the control room and manually released the docking clamps. 3 crew members had been lost in the firefight. The Endeavour had barely cleared the station before Conclave ships opened fire. "Open a channel to Earth Defense Command," Martinez said. "Priority Alpha." The face of General Rodriguez appeared on screen. Her expression shifted from relief to concern as she saw their condition. "Captain Martinez, we'd feared the worst when you missed your scheduled communications." "General, we have an emergency. The Corps are planning to invade Earth. We have evidence they're mobilizing a battle fleet. Estimated arrival time, less than 2 weeks." Rodriguez's face hardened. "Are you certain?" "Without doubt. We barely escaped with our lives." Martinez transmitted the data they had collected. "The Conclave won't help us. Most species either support the Corps or won't oppose them." "How many ships? What capabilities?" Wilson stepped forward. "Based on what we observed, at least 30 capital ships plus support vessels. Technology centuries beyond ours." A heavy silence fell over both sides of the communication. "There is one advantage," Martinez added. "Their energy shields don't stop kinetic weapons. Our bullets passed right through them." Rodriguez's eyes widened slightly. "You engaged them." "We had no choice. They tried to detain us when we discovered their plans." The general nodded grimly. "Return to Earth immediately. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council." Within hours of the Endeavour's return, the United Nations convened an emergency session. World leaders gathered to hear the dire news Martinez and her team brought. "We face an extinction-level threat," Rodriguez told the assembly. "But we also have a critical advantage. Our so-called primitive weapons are effective against their shields." Intelligence agencies worldwide began compiling every scrap of information on alien technology. Scientists worked around the clock to develop new weapons and defenses based on what little they knew. At a secure underground facility in Colorado, Captain Martinez briefed military leaders from 20 nations. "Their shields are calibrated to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles," she explained. "Standard bullets pass through unimpeded. Even simple knives were effective." "So our conventional weapons will work?" asked the British general. "Yes, but their armor is still superior to anything we have," Wilson cautioned. "And their ships' hulls are impervious to our current missiles." "Then we adapt," said the Chinese admiral. "Modify our existing weapons for maximum effect." Teams of engineers began retrofitting missiles with hardened penetrating tips. Artillery shells were redesigned to pierce alien armor. Every military factory on Earth shifted to wartime production. Martinez supervised training for special combat units. The Corps are physically stronger than humans, she told the assembled soldiers. But they've relied on technology so long they've forgotten basic combat skills. They're overconfident and inflexible. Wilson demonstrated tactical approaches. They expect frontal assaults with energy weapons, use cover, use misdirection, and aim for joint sections in their armor. Lieutenant Bennett trained snipers. They don't expect precision at distance. Their own weapons disperse over range. You'll have the advantage beyond 200 meters. As days passed, Earth's orbital defenses were strengthened. Satellites were weaponized. Ground-to-space missiles were positioned around the globe. 7 days after the Endeavor's return, long-range sensors detected multiple objects entering the solar system. The core battle fleet confirmed Space Command, 27 capital ships, 43 support vessels. Current course brings them to Earth in 5 days. In the White House Situation Room, the President of the United States looked at the assembled military leaders. "Are we ready?" General Rodriguez straightened her shoulders. "As ready as we can be, Mr. President. We're outmatched in technology, but not in determination. And sometimes, the simplest weapons are the most effective." The darkness of space lit up as the core battle fleet entered Earth orbit. Their massive ships, each the size of a small city, moved with graceful precision despite their bulk. Energy weapons charged, shields hummed to life, and invasion craft prepared to launch. High Commander Grell Vox stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror, surveying the blue planet below. "Primitive world," he remarked to his second-in-command. "Their most advanced weapons can't even penetrate our scout ship's defenses." "The humans did manage to escape Concordia Station," his officer reminded him. Grell Vox dismissed this with a wave. "A security failure, nothing more. Begin the attack sequence. Target their major military installations first." On Earth, in the Combined Military Command Center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Martinez watched the alien fleet's formation on the main screen. "They're positioning for orbital bombardment," she reported. "Just as we expected." General Rodriguez nodded. "All units in position." "Yes, ma'am." "Operation Hammer is ready." "Then we strike first," Rodriguez said, her voice firm. "Give the order." Martinez activated the global command channel. "All units, execute Hammer Protocol." "I repeat, execute Hammer Protocol." Across Earth, hidden missile silos opened. What emerged were not standard nuclear missiles, but specially modified kinetic projectiles, essentially massive bullets designed for one purpose: to bypass energy shields. The first wave launched, 200 missiles streaking toward the core fleet. The aliens detected them immediately. "Primitive missiles," scoffed Grell Vox. "Activate defensive screens." The familiar shimmer of energy shields enveloped the core ships. But instead of detonating against these barriers, the Earth missiles passed straight through, slamming into the hulls beneath. Explosions ripped through 3 core vessels. Confusion erupted on the Conqueror's bridge. "Impossible," shouted Grell Vox. "How did they penetrate our shields?" Before his officers could respond, a second wave of missiles launched from Earth. "Adjust shield frequencies," ordered Grell Vox. "Launch fighters. Begin the invasion now." Thousands of core landing craft descended toward Earth's surface. As they entered the atmosphere, they encountered another surprise. Earth's air forces had been equipped with specially designed ammunition, simple lead bullets coated with materials harvested from the alien scout ship found years earlier. Fighter jets engaged the alien craft, their primitive weapons tearing through sophisticated shields. For every human plane lost, 3 alien craft fell from the sky. On the ground, the first core troops landed near major cities. They emerged confident, armed with energy weapons, and protected by personal shields. They expected minimal resistance. Instead, they met soldiers led by Major Wilson. His forces had abandoned traditional combat formations in favor of guerrilla tactics. Snipers targeted joint sections in alien armor. Regular bullets passed through energy shields like they weren't there. Near Washington, D.C., Lieutenant Bennett positioned her sniper team on a hillside. "Target commanders," she ordered. "Look for the ones giving orders." Her rifle cracked. Half a mile away, a Corps officer fell. His troops, unaccustomed to losing command structure, faltered in confusion. In orbit, the battle had turned chaotic. The Corps ships, designed to fight energy weapon battles at a distance, struggled against Earth's kinetic weapons. 5 more alien vessels had been destroyed or disabled. On the Conqueror, Grell Vox watched in growing horror as his invasion force was decimated. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are primitives." His tactical officer looked up from his station. "Sir, they're using physical projectiles. Our shields are calibrated for energy weapons, not solid matter." "Then recalibrate them." "We can't, sir. The system wasn't designed for this. To stop physical objects would require completely different technology." For the first time, uncertainty crossed Grell Vox's face. He had led his fleet into battle expecting an easy victory. Instead, he was losing ships by the hour. As the battle entered its second day, new vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system, ships bearing the insignia of the Galactic Conclave. Led by the Vexari and Tellarites, they had come to investigate reports of unauthorized military action. What they found stunned them: half the Corps fleet destroyed, the rest in disarray, and Earth's defenses holding firm. Ambassador Kren transmitted from the lead Conclave vessel. "This conflict must end. The Conclave hereby recognizes Earth as a sovereign power with full rights under galactic law." Martinez looked at Rodriguez. "We did it." The general smiled tiredly. "Sometimes the old ways are still effective."